Former LSU football star and 2007 NFL #1 draft pick Jamarcus Russell has a record tonight. It is not for sports.
Why this former Raiders quarterback now has a criminal arrest record.
Imagine a franchise on its knees. Dried up championship team now drowning in defeat. The fans have suffered over the years, seeing their hopes and dreams reduced to nothing. The only thing that can save them is a savior, a trade or draft pick that will turn the tide. Then, a towering young quarterback appears on the horizon. Built like a superhero, armed with a cannon for an arm, a man to carry the team back to glory. The city holds its breath as this prodigy arrives amidst fanfare and fortune. What if the hero were the one to put the final nail in the team's coffin? This is the rise and ruin of the NFL's biggest fraud. A story of one of the best QBs ever, who destroyed his future and almost took the Raider Nation with it. In the mid-2000s, the Oakland Raiders were in a free fall. After a Super Bowl trip in 2002, the team plunged into darkness. Losing became the norm. So much so that by 2006, the Raiders hit rock bottom with a 2-14 record, the worst in the NFL that year. Coaches came and went. The offense was pathetic, only 10.5 points per game in 2006. And the once rowdy Raider Nation was now restless and heartbroken. Owner Al Davis, forever chasing the ghost of past glories, needed a franchise hero. He needed someone to rally the fan base, to be the face of a turnaround. And as the 2007 NFL draft approached, Oakland held the #1 overall pick, a tiny piece of hope for a franchise stuck in the cellar. At LSU, Jamarcus Russell was a revelation. He stood 6'6" and 260 pounds, a giant with a rocket for an arm. He put up video game numbers, over 6,000 passing yards and 52 touchdowns in his college career. He only lost 4 games as a starter with a 25-4 record, and even led the Tigers to a Super Bowl win as the league MVP, a real-life hacker. Scouts drooled over his physical traits. One draft expert marveled that Russell had authored the best pro day workout he'd ever seen. The arm strength was off the charts. Legend has it he could casually flick the ball 70 yards downfield, even throw from one knee. He was, in the words of one NFL coach, too hard to pass up at #1. For a team starved of star power, Jamarcus looked like the perfect meal ticket. So with the #1 pick in the 2007 NFL draft, the Raiders made the obvious choice. Jamarcus Russell would be the only one to bring the team to its former glory. In an instant, he went from college star to the future of the Raiders, signing a massive 6-year contract worth a jaw-dropping $61 million, with about $29 to $32 million guaranteed. It was the largest rookie deal in NFL history. Raider Nation rejoiced. At last they had their quarterback, their potential savior. Was this gifted youngster ready for the responsibility? The Raiders believed he was ready, but the thing is, they were too blinded by his golden arm and their desperate need of hope to see the cracks forming beneath the surface. As Jamarcus smiled for the camera, no one could imagine the nightmare that was brewing. From the moment Jamarcus Russell arrived in Oakland, the fairy tale began to unravel. Instead of immediately embracing his role as team leader, Russell missed all of training camp as a contract dispute lingered through the summer of 2007. Weeks passed with him absent. Finally, in September, 1 week into the season, he inked his record deal and joined the team. The holdout secured his millions, but it cost him valuable time. By the time Russell suited up, the season was underway, and he was not the same man. Russell spent most of his rookie season on the bench, effectively redshirting. He rode the bench for much of the season, appearing briefly in a few games and getting his first start in the final week. There were flashes, a rifle throw here, a scramble there, but nothing definitive. He finished that year with 2 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions, and just 373 yards in limited action. Even with this, the Raiders handed him the keys for 2008. Head coach Lane Kiffin, who privately had reservations about Russell from the start, named Jamarcus the starter going into the 2008 season. The real test was about to begin. Do you think it's all hype, or have you heard this story already? The 2008 season was Russell's first full shot. At times, he validated the hype. In one early game against division rival Denver Broncos, Russell lit up the field with 2 touchdown passes. Raider Nation roared with approval. This was the gunslinger they'd been promised. But consistency was nowhere to be found. The very next week, Russell managed a measly 55 yards passing. And yes, the entire game, where he completed only 6 passes. It was head-scratching. 1 week a star, the next a spectator. He ended 2008 with modest stats, about 2,400 yards, 13 TDs, and 8 interceptions, and a below-average 53.8% completion rate. The Raiders limped to a 5-11 record that season. Russell showed just enough promise to keep hope alive, but his uneven performances raised eyebrows. Behind closed doors, rumors swirled that he wasn't putting in the work. Comparisons to past draft busts like Ryan Leaf and Akili Smith began bubbling up among nervous fans and pundits. Supremely talented quarterbacks who flamed out due to poor habits. The Raiders, however, remained invested. They doubled down on their young QB, convinced that 2009 would be the year he'd put it all together. If they only knew how wrong they would be. By the summer of 2009, Russell showed up to training camp out of shape. Reports had him well above his listed weight. Still, head coach Tom Cable named him the starter for the 2009 season, reiterating that the team had confidence in their quarterback. But that confidence would be shattered in spectacular fashion. The stage was set for a make-or-break third season. Everyone braced for Russell to prove himself. Instead, he delivered one of the most disastrous performances in NFL history. If 2008 was a disappointment, 2009 was a catastrophe. To say Jamarcus Russell struggled was an understatement. Things hit a new low by Week 5 against the Giants. Russell was utterly unprepared, passing for only 100 yards and fumbling the ball 3 times. The Raiders were embarrassed, 44-7. It was a nightmare, and yet it was only a warning of the deeper problems to come. As the losses piled up, Russell's play somehow kept deteriorating. By mid-season, his stat line wasn't just plain bad. It was almost unbelievable how bad it was. In 9 starts, he only threw 2 touchdown passes with 9 interceptions, missing wide-open receivers like it was extra credit, and displaying shockingly poor footwork almost every play. Every week, it became harder to deny what was happening. The number 1 overall pick was spiraling out of control right before our eyes and on national TV. On November 15, 2009, Coach Tom Cable had seen enough. In a rare move for a team's supposed franchise quarterback, Cable benched Russell indefinitely. Backup Bruce Gradkowski took over, and what happened next sealed Russell's fate forever. Gradkowski immediately injected life into the team, leading 2 thrilling fourth-quarter comebacks to beat the Bengals and the defending champion Steelers in back-to-back weeks. In those 2 games alone, Gradkowski threw 5 touchdowns, more than Russell had managed all season, making Russell an instant memory to fans watching live. Raiders fans, who had once chanted Russell's name with hope, now booed him mercilessly. They chanted for the backup while Russell stood frozen on the sideline, bundled in a jacket, helplessly watching his future evaporate. The humiliation had started and wasn't ending anytime soon. Meanwhile, stories leaked out of the Raiders' headquarters painting an even uglier picture behind the scenes. Coaches reportedly struggled to get Russell to study film or even hit the gym with any real intensity. One infamous story told by teammate Warren Sapp involved Raiders coaches testing Russell's commitment by giving him a blank DVD labeled Game Plan to watch at home. The next day, they asked if he studied it. Russell reportedly nodded and said, "Yeah, I liked the game plan," not realizing the DVD was empty. It was now obvious. He hadn't been watching film at all. Another report alleged that Russell often fell asleep in team meetings. He wasn't just underperforming, he was actively eroding the trust of everyone around him. On the field, his numbers were historically worse. Russell finished 2009 with a passer rating of 50, the worst by a starting QB in more than a decade. He threw just 3 touchdowns with a shocking 11 interceptions and completed fewer than half of his passes. Fans showed up to games wearing paper bags over their heads or custom jerseys that read "Bust" over Russell's number. With 2 games left in the season, even after Gradkowski got injured, the Raiders still refused to turn back to Russell. Instead, they promoted third stringer Charlie Fry. Russell was demoted to third string, a $60 million bench warmer. Only when Fry went down did Russell briefly see the field again. And even then, coaches kept the play calling ultra-conservative to minimize his mistakes. The Raiders finished 5-11, missing the playoffs for the 7th consecutive year. The Jamarcus Russell experiment had not only failed, it was a complete and total disaster, and they couldn't imagine how it could get any worse. Little did they know, he had one more trick up his sleeve. By March 2010, reports surfaced that Russell had ballooned to nearly 290 pounds. Some whispers even claimed he crossed 300 pounds. Raiders coaches made vague comments about him competing for his job, but everyone knew the truth. The franchise had given up. The final blow came when the Raiders traded for veteran Jason Campbell, a clear sign that Russell's time was over. On May 6, 2010, they officially released him. swallowing tens of millions in lost investment. Russell's final tally with Oakland: 7 wins, 18 losses, 18 touchdowns, 23 interceptions, and 15 lost fumbles in 31 games. The franchise savior had left the team in ruins. But the downfall didn't stop there. 2 months after his release, Russell was arrested in Mobile, Alabama for possession of codeine cough syrup without a prescription, part of an undercover narcotics investigation. Though he avoided major legal consequences, the image damage was devastating. In a matter of months, Jamarcus had gone from the #1 overall pick to an unemployed mugshot, now printed on t-shirts as a joke. Still, Russell wasn't ready to give up publicity. Humbled but literally heavier than ever, he began plotting a comeback. He moved to Houston to train with Josh Lucas, a famed life coach who specialized in helping troubled athletes. Late in 2010, Russell even had a tryout with Washington, but left without an offer. The Dolphins even brought him in after their starting QB went down, but he weighed 292 pounds and again failed to impress. Even Josh Lucas eventually gave up, kicking Russell out of his rehab program. If the coach that helps troubled athletes kicks you out of the rehab, you know you're in deep trouble. The NFL had quietly blackballed Jamarcus Russell, not by conspiracy, but by collective resignation. Coaches and GMs wanted no part of him and his lack of love for the game. For a few years, Russell disappeared from public view. Then, in 2013, he attempted one last comeback. He trained intensely with a team of former NFL veterans, including Jeff Garcia and Marshall Faulk, to shed weight and prove he could still play. The training culminated in a web series called Jamarcus Russell's Road Back to the NFL, showing him grinding through exhausting workouts, sweating through drills, dropping weight down to 265 pounds, his original rookie shape. His legendary arm strength still flashed in workouts. There were whispers of mild interest from teams like the Bears and Ravens. In June 2013, Chicago even brought him in for a tryout. Russell reportedly delivered a solid performance, but it wasn't enough. Teams, still haunted by his past failures, passed him over. He never signed another NFL contract. The fallout from the Jamarcus Russell era was enormous. For the Raiders, his failure cost them years of competitiveness, and arguably contributed to their ultimate relocation from Oakland. The word bust became almost synonymous with his name. Fans created memes mocking him with blank DVDs, or photoshops of him passed out in Raiders gear clutching cough syrup. He became an internet punchline. Former coaches and teammates spoke candidly. Russell didn't love football, didn't prepare, and didn't care enough. Even once supportive voices like Mike Mayock and Steve Wyche called him the biggest bust in NFL history. After football, Russell returned to Mobile, Alabama. For a time, he found purpose, volunteering as a quarterback coach at his old school, Williamson High. It seemed like a positive turn, helping teenagers avoid his mistakes. But even that chapter ended in controversy. In 2023, Russell was sued over a $74,000 donation meant for the high school's football program. Allegations claimed the money never made it to the school and instead disappeared into Russell's personal account. He was removed from the coaching role. Russell denied intentional wrongdoing, but the damage was done. In June 2022, 15 years after his draft day, Russell finally broke his silence. In a powerful Players Tribune essay titled, "Y'all Don't Know a Damn Thing About Jamarcus Russell," he spoke honestly about his struggles. He admitted to drinking codeine lean since his LSU days, using it to cope with pain and stress. He admitted responsibility for his failures, but also painted a broader picture of the dysfunction around him in Oakland. It was a sobering reflection that came too late to change his football legacy, but maybe enough to humanize the man behind the bust. Jamarcus Russell's story isn't just about football. It's about what happens when raw talent meets no discipline. It's about wasted potential. We watched a young man blessed with every gift squander it all, and a proud franchise lose almost a decade of progress because of it. Could it have been different? What if Jamarcus Russell had the right mentors, the right team, the right mindset? The NFL is a league built on what-ifs, but in Russell's case, the reality is final. His story stands frozen as the ultimate warning. Talent means nothing without heart, leadership, and grind. In the end, Jamarcus Russell didn't just fail the Raiders, he failed himself. Don't let yourself become the next Jamarcus Russell.